An Israeli strike in Lebanon eliminated a man believed to be a weapons supplier for Hamas and other terrorist organizations. The Israel Defense Forces providing this video right here on your screen a short time ago saying the military struck and killed Ayman Ratma. You can see the strike again in the car right there on your screen. Now, this comes as Hebrew media reports the target of an Israeli strike in Gaza City was senior Hamas commander Raad Saad. Saad is considered to be the number 4 within Hamas and was previously the chief of Hamas operations. I do want to talk more about this and all the latest developments there out of the Middle East. There are quite a few of them. So let's bring in Dr. Randa Slim, a senior fellow and director of the Conflict Resolution and Track 2 Dialogues program over at the Middle East Institute. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us and help break some of this down for us.
Thank you for the invitation, and good to be with you.
Of course. Well, first off, can you kind of explain to me, we see these targeted strikes that are happening a lot, whether it's over in Gaza or it's over in Lebanon. So essentially, how significant are each of these strikes overall where an official is taken out?
Look, I think short term, there is definitely significance. I mean, this person who's taken out has institutional memory, has expertise that has been accumulated over years, and his loss is going to affect some of the operation. But in the medium to long term, these organizations, be it Hezbollah, be it Hamas, are very resilient, and they have over time in the past shown their capacities to replace people. They have a deep bench of people who are in charge of different actions of different parts of their operations, and so they can be replaced in the medium to long term.
And we're now hearing from Saudi news outlets reporting that Hezbollah militants have been told not to sleep in their headquarters and to change their location frequently, also not to use cell phones when they're on the move close to the border there. So what does all of that kind of say to you?
I mean, it says that Hezbollah is deeply infiltrated by Israeli intelligence, that over the years, Israeli intelligence has accumulated a trove of information about their commanders, their battalions, their modus operandi, and the location and their families of these people. And they have been targeting them since October 8th. Hezbollah has lost more than 400 of these commanders. But again, yeah, commanders are killed, but then other people will step in their shoes because each one of these has a number of deputies and sub-commanders, beneath them. So I think what Hezbollah is trying to do is to deny Israel some of its abilities to target these people in their database by making it more difficult for Israel to hit them or to find them.
I want to pull up this post right here on your screen. This is the UN chief there, Antonio Guterres, who warns of destruction, quote, beyond imagination if Lebanon becomes, quote, another Gaza. My question, if Israel and Hezbollah go to war, what might happen to Lebanon?
Look, it will be devastating for Lebanon. This is a country that is right now in the throes of a severe economic crisis where a majority of people have lost their bank savings and their abilities, to rebuild homes if they get destroyed in a war. The health sector in Lebanon is barely able to deal with, regular responsibilities of dealing with sick patients. If there is a war, there will be huge amounts of injured and people that will require care. That will pose tremendous strain on the healthcare system. And the civilian infrastructure itself is extremely weak and fragile. So, but I have to say that on the other side, I mean, unlike 2006, Hezbollah today is a much more potent belligerent. They have a whole arsenal of precision-guided missiles, and they will be able to exact a high cost on Israeli infrastructure, Israeli military capacities, if there is such an all-out war.
If that war does happen, we know that the U.S. has expressed concern that the Iron Dome, the aerial defense systems there in Israel, might not be able to handle it. They might be overwhelmed by Hezbollah's rocket fire. Is that a real possibility?
That is a real concern. I'm not a military expert, but speaking to military experts who know this this file better than I do. I mean, they say that Hezbollah has so far, since October 8th, shown a sophisticated way of using drones and missiles that has been surprising to them, including some Israeli military officials. And that in the case of a large war, Israel is talking about a limited operation. In the case of a large war, all-out war, if Hezbollah were to use its vast arsenal of rockets, of drones, of precision-guided missiles, then yes, they can they can overwhelm the Iron Dome batteries, especially the ones that are placed in the northern part of Israel.
We heard from the Qatari prime minister, who said that some progress has been made on a ceasefire hostage release deal between Israel and Hamas. However, Hamas's Qatar-based leader said that Hamas is only open to a deal that ends the war completely. I imagine from what I've seen overall, what's been reported, what the IDF, the prime minister there in Israel has said, that that's not something Israel is going to agree to, anything that ends the war right away.
Well, you know, I've been working in conflict areas for a very long time. And I always say never, you know, when there is a diplomatic process. This is an active and dynamic conflict situation where developments on the ground could create new openings for people to change their positions, to think at their cost-benefit calculus differently. And so, yes, it is difficult. However, the Secretary of State, Blinken, keeps saying that the demands or the differences between Hamas demands and President Biden plan are bridgeable. And so I think they are working on bridging these differences. And that will have a major implication for the prospects of war, all-out war between Lebanon and Israel, Hezbollah and Israel, because Hezbollah has conditioned its cessation of hostilities on that border with Israel with a ceasefire in Gaza, permanent ceasefire. So if there is a permanent ceasefire in Gaza, you are going to have immediately a cessation of hostilities and a ceasefire by Hezbollah, at least on the border with Israel. And then there is a diplomatic plan that has been put together by the Americans and by Israelis, especially by U.S. envoy Amos Hochstein, that if implemented can go a long way in reinstating a state of calm on the Lebanese-Israeli border, which has been the case since 2006, the end of the last war between Lebanon and Israel.
My last question for you here. The IDF says there's, quote, no indication that Israel carried out a deadly strike in Gaza after the International Committee of the Red Cross said that at least 22 people were killed there. Do we know who fired the, quote unquote, heavy caliber projectiles, as they've been referred to, and the extent of the damage that now exists?
Look, the ICRC, the International Committee of the Red Cross, is saying at the same time they could not independently verify the IDF claim that they are not the ones who hit the camp. I mean, we have to also say, look at Israeli behavior until now. In May, they hit a rocket launcher that supposedly was close to another camp, and from which, you know, rockets were launched into central Israel. And then the international community or people on the ground came back to say that that rocket launcher was nowhere near the camp which was hit. So it is Israel's responsibility. It's all belligerents' responsibilities in a situation of active war to take extra precautions in limiting losses to human lives among civilians, to distinguish between combatant and civilian. In this war, I think Israel's record on this has been lacking. You have had more than 30,000 Palestinians killed, civilians and fighters. You have more than 85,000 wounded, civilians and killed. You have hundreds of hostages. You have hundreds of Israeli soldiers and civilians killed. So I think there needs to be, you know, accountability going forward on respecting the laws of war in active conflict situation going forward. And I'm not just blaming Israel, but Israel has more capacities, more abilities, and is a trained army. So it is incumbent on it, a professional army, to follow the rules of law, the rules of war, and to distinguish, to go an extra way in distinguishing between civilian and combatants.
All right, Dr. Randa Slim, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here and help break down the latest developments. Anything else you want to add before I let you go?
No, thank you very much. These were very good questions, Josh. It has been a pleasure being with you today.
All right. Have a good rest of your day. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Great weekend. Bye-bye.